So what would you like to see in the next few years if things go as we want them to go, that things do become more transparent, the legislation gets to be put in the context that we require it for individuals. If you ask somebody on the street in 2 or 3 years' time, what happens to your data? What do you think they should be able to say?
Personally, I think I agree with both Toby and Lars on the education side. But I think pushing education or training for IT users or IT departments and also consumers is to have some sort of certification for establishment collecting data that actually they comply with regulations, and kind of enforce the training and education that we're talking about, consent and hosting data and managing data and holding it on behalf of customers, so customers can demand that to see a data consent or some sort of a certification to prove that this sort of establishment is with compliance with data regulation, rather than leaving it loosely. Yes, we comply with data protection and data privacy. So.
Okay. And what about the empowerment of IT professionals themselves? Yeah. Do you think they've got the position at the moment that they can actually feed back to the organisations there and say, hey, our consent structure is not correct, it needs to be this, it needs to be that? That's what we'd like to see, isn't it, for a professional IT person?
But I think the problem is that we, for many years, have stuck correctly to the mantra that IT should be supporting the business,
yes,
enabling the business, not holding it back. So it's very difficult for an IT manager to go back into the business and say, hey guys, you can't do this with this data, it's not right. You're saving up a host of problems for further down the line. So we need to find ways to bring IT and business objectives together to make sure these problems don't arise. Now, there isn't a panacea that will achieve that at this moment. IT has certainly come into the boardroom, but we now need closer decision making so that we don't start collecting this data in the first place if it's inappropriate to do so.
I mean, I see the role of a CIO plays a big part of this.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I always took the I for a CIO as information, so it's about data. And so I do play a part on our exec board, and it is all about what we do with that data. And I think there are commercial things we can do with the data. If you think about it, at S3 we say, okay, we've got all of this CV data, but you can do lots of interesting things on top of that data. You know, I can tell you how many Java developers there are in Reading. You know, it's quite useful information. How many jobs there are. You know, so you can do some thought leadership, and you can do some stuff based on stuff you derive from that data, without actually affecting the individual's personal data, which I think you have to protect. And the interesting role for me, as S3's gone global, it's the fact you've got different data jurisdictions. You know, you can get away. I can do lots of different things, but I can't do stuff in Germany. I did the lowest common denominator. I said, look, we'll just take the lowest common denominator, Germany, and then we'll apply that globally. So that was an ethical decision, then knowing that we wouldn't get into issues later on. But I think you have got a big gap between the legislation and what your marketeers would want to do. And I think part of the dilemma in any organisation is to come to a medium to say, actually, the person that has the say in this is the candidate in our case and the client, and you have to follow what they want to do. And everyone has different. I think it is about just being open and honest to what you're trying to do. I think the biggest issue we've got is the fact that when you ask an organisation what you do in that data, you don't get a straight answer.
Yeah. Right. Okay. I think 3 years from now, I'd love to see that consumer empowerment.
Yes. To say, what have you done with that data?
Well, to the level of allowing the consumer to become the data controller in the data protection context, there's a growing movement of vendor relation management, personal data stores, which are predicated on this idea that the consumer controls their data. Because we're spraying data wherever we go, leaving this great big trail behind us. But if I can control how that is used, and I have genuine control over that, it doesn't matter. You can have all my data if I know you cannot use it, and that I can enforce that.
Yes.
So I'd love to see that growth in consumer empowerment to the point that the consumer really controls the data. Ownership, by the way, goes out the window as a concept here. It doesn't matter. How can you own something that exists in 100 different places?
Yes.
But if you can dictate how it's used,
You can control it.
then you've got power backing it.
Yeah.